You know when you're in a big city and you see those skyscrapers with grass roofs? I asked my cousin about this and he thought they were for aesthetic purposes, but that's not true. They actually exist to fight an environmental phenomenon known as the urban heat island effect. And in Louisville, we have one of the worst urban heat island effects. It leads to the city being at times 20 degrees higher than in rural areas. Now, what causes this? Well, you know when it's the middle of the summer and you're standing on a hot piece of concrete or the street or a sidewalk and you realize that it's hotter there than it is in the grass. That's because the concrete absorbs all that heat in it, doesn't let it go like the grass does. Besides hurting your feet, the heat trapped in by that concrete also causes the urban heat island effect. In cities where most of the buildings are made out of concrete, all that heat's getting trapped in. It raises the entire city's temperature by multiple degrees. Now in Louisville, our average degree difference is 5 degrees on average, according to WDRB, but at times it can be even 20 degrees higher than in rural areas. Now, the urban heat in Louisville is so bad that it was one of the first urban heat islands ever studied. This is why Louisville, unlike other cities in the nation, actually has some things to mitigate it, but the heat island still remains, constantly raising the temperature in the city. Although 5 degrees doesn't seem like much, Louisville's heat island has multiple negative effects on its people. Now, according to LouisvilleKY.gov, 86 Louisville residents die of heat-related ailments annually. Now, as the heat island gets hotter and it keeps getting bigger, the deaths will increase. Now, Louisville Mayor Greg Fishers actually talked about it. He said, quote, "We know that too often the zip code where you are born can correlate with negative health outcomes. That's unacceptable. In addition, the added heat causes citizens and businesses to run their air conditioning longer and higher, which drives up energy costs for citizens and businesses. It also increases pollution, leading to more global warming. It's a vicious cycle," end quote. When the city's heat increases, energy consumption gets worse, causing more environmental issues when greenhouse gases are released into the atmosphere. Now, these emissions, in connection with the heat released by the urban heat island effect, combined to create ground-level ozone, what we know as smog. Now, all populations in the city are affected by this, but one of the groups hit the hardest are people with low incomes. As the Environmental Protection Agency said, quote, "Populations with low income are at greater risk for heat-related illnesses due to poor housing conditions, including lack of air conditioning and small living spaces and inadequate resources to find shelter during a heat wave," end quote. The heat island in Louisville leaves all people living near the city center susceptible to heat-related ailments, many of which can be fatal. The terrible fact is the heat islands are just one of the many issues facing environments today, and Louisville has one of the worst heat islands in the nation. Another terrible thing that the heat island can cause is it can damage our watershed. Now, as the city heats up, so does the rainwater that hits and drains off that city. All that rainwater eventually reaches natural bodies of water, for instance, the Ohio River. And when that hot rain enters the Ohio, it actually heats the Ohio up. Now, aquatic marine life can't handle big changes to their environments. It actually can kill a lot of them off. So as the urban heat island heats up that rain and it's released into the water, it's damaging the water ecosystem. Now, we know how much Louisville depends on the Ohio River, so imagine what happens if the Ohio River gets hot and it becomes barren and it just becomes filled with life that's unable to live. Louisville would be damaged, and its citizens, by example, would also be damaged. So it's just another way that the urban heat island is going to permanently harm Louisville unless we can change it. So, in summary, unless something changes, with Louisville being so closely dependent on the Ohio River and the urban heat island continuing to get worse, the urban heat island will leave our cities hotter and hotter, making it more difficult for life in all forms to survive. The urban heat island, which is widespread but it is severe in Louisville, will lead to more deaths, a polluted ecosystem, and a river filled with life unable to live.